Welcome back to Jersey Matters. If your child is being constantly bullied at school, you may not know it, but you have legal remedies. Here to talk about that is Arla Cahill, attorney at Mandelbaum Salzburg, which is up in Essex County, and she's also chair of the Education Law Practice Group. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. So what are the legal remedies? Because I know parents get so frustrated when their child comes home and says, I've been bullied, and they don't feel like there's a remedy.
That's right. There's a statute in New Jersey called the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act. And that statute, which was enacted a few years ago, requires school districts to enact policies to investigate acts of harassment, intimidation, and bullying, which we call HIB for short. So parents who are suspecting that their child is a victim of bullying, they will have to contact the school district, usually the principal of the school at which the child's attending, and they will fill out a complaint form, and the school district has to do an investigation of that act of HIB promptly, within 10 days, 10 business days.
They fill out a complaint form, so every school must have this complaint form?
That's correct.
So you just ask for it, and then what is on the complaint form? Just whatever the incident is?
What the parent will do is describe in detail what the act was. Bullying can be a lot of different things, and that's really important for parents to understand. It can be an act, it could be something verbal, something written, it can be electronic communication. We're sort of in the new age of bullying because we have cyberbullying now, where a student can be victimized any time of the day, and that can happen through texting, emailing, social media, and many times it's even more of a virulent form of bullying because it's a psychological attack on the victim of bullying.
I just read a story that said that suicide among teenage girls is up dramatically, and they point to bullying online for specifically for that reason. That is the leading cause of it.
Yes, I've read similar studies, and it's interesting that there's more bullying between female students on one another, and I believe there's been an increase of a significant percentage based on recent studies that young girls go after one another. Boys tend to go after girls and other boys, but girls tend to go after other girls. And it can be for a variety of reasons. The Anti-HIB Act in New Jersey specifies the types of characteristics that bullying can be based on. So if the person or the victim is being perceived as either by way of their disability, their age, their race, it's some sort of characteristic that distinguishes them from others. But that's a problem in New Jersey.
Why is that important? I mean, if some child's bullied and they don't go through any of those criteria, it's still bullying.
Yes, and you've pinpointed a problem with the statute because if bullying sometimes is irrational. It's not based on particularly a characteristic that's enumerated in the statute. So a lot of parents are frustrated because their school district is looking at the framework that the statute has articulated, and if that student doesn't fit within one of those characteristics, then a school may conclude that bullying has not occurred. And it's different, for example, in a different type of context, like we have intentional infliction of emotional distress as a cause of action in New Jersey, but what happens here is that the anti-HIB statute is only focusing on perceived characteristics, but there may be characteristics that are not as identifiable as age, race, etc.
It seems odd. I mean, it seems odd that it's only certain demographic groups that get protection. How long has this law been on the books?
Oh, at least 5 years. Off the top of my head, I can't recall the year.
Are there people that saying, hey, you've got big, huge loopholes in this law and it has to be changed?
Well, there are individuals who are advocating for changes in the law. Most recently, there was a bill introduced called Mallory's Law, in which there are provisions in which parents or guardians of students who have been determined to have engaged in harassment, they may be civilly liable for their students' conduct. But that's not enough. I think my view that the statute has to be broadened to account for the fact that harassment and intimidation may not be based on a perceived characteristic. It could be simply irrational. You're dealing with young minds, young children. teenage students. And the reason for their victimizing another student may be completely unknown to the school district, and that's what makes it difficult for school districts to punish students like that. What I would tell parents is every school has a code of conduct, code of student conduct. What parents should do is, if they're not getting relief under the anti-HIB framework that the schools are following, they should examine the student code of conduct and see if there are other acts that are listed, that are enumerated in the code of conduct that potentially that bully could be found to have violated.
And once the parents go and once they file this paperwork, does the school, do the classmates understand what's happening? Is that person who is already feeling ostracized even more because their parents complained about bullying?
Well, they're not supposed to be retaliated against, but that could happen, and I have had clients tell me about that. That is a concern. A lot of times bullied students feel ashamed that they're being bullied, so they don't say anything to their parents. So I like to urge parents to follow up on what their children are doing, look at their social media communications, maybe limit the access to those types of media, limit texts, look at your child's texts, look at their emails, get to meet their friends. The problem with bullying is that the student feels socially isolated, and they feel ashamed many times that they're being bullied, and they don't say anything to the parent.
Because they don't want to disappoint the parent.
That's
and
correct.
They think that if they're being bullied, they're somehow disappointing
Absolutely.
their parents. No, I get it. Thank you so much for coming in. How do people get a hold of you?
They can reach me at cahill@lawfirm.ms, and they can certainly Google me. As you mentioned, my name is Arla Cahill.
Great. Arla Cahill.
Yes.
Attorney at Mandelbaum Salzburg, and she's also chair of the Educational Law Practice Group. When we come back, ABC News had the Jeffrey Epstein story before he was arrested. Why didn't they run it? My commentary when Jersey Matters comes right back.